All right, so the latest from Eskom is that Unit 1 of the Koeberg Nuclear Power Station will only be switched off on Saturday. That's a long-term maintenance been planned for many months. It was meant to start today, but of course the state of the national grid forced that change. But in the meantime, we're still grappling with stage 6, which means 10 hours, sometimes more, without power. Ordinary South Africans, businesses are really feeling how very difficult it is. And we know it could get worse. Eskom is not ruling out that we could go as deep as stage 8 power cuts. So let's speak now to our eNCA senior reporter Aviwe Mtila, who will join us from Cape Town, and Heidi Giokos, who has been out and about here in Johannesburg. And Heidi, I'm going to start with you. You've spoken to businesses today about the impact of load shedding. Is it the same old story, or is this just worse than they've had before?
Yes, Sally, it seems as though it's definitely worse than what businesses have been experiencing before. Of course, this has possibly been the worst kind of load shedding that South Africans have been subjected to in the past couple of months. A very worrying picture, because we do know that Eskom cannot give a clear indication about what that schedule is going to look like. What does this mean for manufacturers? What does this mean for factories, for construction, for businesses that are solely dependent on the electricity that Eskom supplies? We got a chance today to speak to a big manufacturer, Max Steel, who fortunately they are in a position to have generators and spend between 10 and 12 million rand a year just on diesel to make sure that their generators are fully functional, because they cannot operate without electricity. It's a factory, they need that power. What I found so fascinating, Sally, and I could not believe it, I actually asked the CEO to repeat this a couple of times. They spend about 25,000 rand per hour to run a generator. That's 25,000 rand per hour to run a generator, because the amount of liters the generator of diesel the generator uses. What about other businesses that don't have the means to pay for this, that have to sit in the dark and have to wait? When it's stage 6 load shedding, it's 10 hours of the day with no electricity. How do these businesses function? We got a chance to speak to Max Steel, CEO. Let's listen to what he had to say about the impact.
But essentially, that disruption creates chaos in our processes and in our ability to deliver to customers. It creates an environment where we are moving less material out of the gate. You know, less material out the gate is less revenue in the month, and it impacts our ability to break even or even make a profit. And therefore, GDP gets impacted. The country is impacted severely. I'm stating the obvious, but you can see what it means to a business like this. You know, we are putting many thousands of tons of material through a production line, and when it gets disrupted, things happen, damage occurs, and we lose revenue and opportunity. I can't state it any more severely than that.
10 to 12 million rand a year just for that company. Heidi, 25,000 rand an hour to run their generators. I mean, it is astonishing, you're right. But equally as worrying is the impact on health services, because hospitals save lives. And if their generators are not functioning, or if indeed they don't have generators, that is a very serious problem. We've seen moves in the past few months for hospitals to be sort of ring-fenced and excluded from load shedding. Do you have any update on that?
Yes, so it seems as though the Health Minister, Dr. Joe Phaahla, today is saying that they will be knocking on National Treasury's door to ask for more money, Sally, because they have completely depleted their budget when it comes to diesel, because they constantly need to be running those generators. You cannot find a hospital that does not have electricity supply, especially our big hospitals like Chris Hani, Baragwanath Hospital in Soweto. So this becomes a very big problem. And of course, the health minister saying that they will be still engaging with all relevant stakeholders to deal with this. I think what's worrying is that only 77 out of the over 240 hospitals across the country have been exempt from load shedding, and these are of course only some of the bigger hospitals. What about the smaller ones that of course also save lives and provide critical services to those in our society? It seems as though the Northwest is also a problematic province because they don't have any hospitals that are exempt from load shedding. Hospitals are really buckling under and they are not coping, and the health minister has urged government to try and deal with this matter as urgently as possible. He says it's not the responsibility of the Department of Health to deal with the load shedding, but he says this has a direct impact, and he says if things get worse, it's of course only going to get worse for these hospitals. Let's listen to the health minister on that.
In the coming week, the DG and the team will also be meeting not only with Eskom, but also with COCTA and SALGA, because we need to also get commitment from local authorities, because some of those are supplied by local authorities, where we must be able to secure the lines for supply of electricity to our hospitals. That's really in the medium. We are not happy with just 77 hospitals out of the figure is over the prioritized health facilities are over 200, I think just around 240 or so. So this is still a very low number, moving very slowly. But our colleagues here have urged that we must really double our efforts as the load shedding. It clearly is going to be something we're going to live with for a very long time.
Yeah, interesting, Heidi, how we're seeing frustration coming from not only the health minister, the public enterprise minister speaking out today, and then, of course, the energy minister as well. Let's bring Aviwe Mtila in from Cape Town. Appropriate, Aviwe, because, of course, the Koeberg Nuclear Power Station is in Cape Town, and that was due to go offline, or certainly one unit was due to go offline from midnight this last night, but it's been stopped for a few days because there were real fears that taking that power off the grid would push us into stage 7 load shedding. So we're not at stage 7, thank goodness. What exactly is the power utility saying about the refurbishment at the nuclear power station now?
Sally, it's been 407 days since Koeberg 1, the nuclear power station here in Cape Town, was last maintained. Now it looks like it'll have to wait just a few more days until that refueling and maintenance happens. We do know it's expected to take place just on Saturday. That is, of course, Sally, if our situation stabilizes with the blackouts and the levels, which we do understand now currently on stage 6, are brought down. So there is that question mark if indeed it will have to go off the grid to then allow for the refueling and maintenance to happen in Koeberg 1. But at this stage, it's still assisting, of course, the national grid with our power crisis.
Yeah, and we know that it normally gives 1,000 megawatts, which is quite a chunk, bearing in mind our capacity is 45,000 megawatts at the moment. But they've been gradually reducing that over the last few months in preparation for this moment, down to 650 megawatts. It's still a sizable chunk. But Aviwe, Cape Town is such an interesting case because they always have slightly easier load shedding than us, most of it because of the Steenbras Dam. But also this municipality in many ways is leading the way and showing other municipalities how to make things a little easier. Tell us about what you found out.
Sally, you speak to the city of Cape Town and the provincial government itself. They'll tell you that they plan months ahead for this stage 6 load shedding. So yesterday, the Disaster Management Center was activated. And we do know, of course, you mentioned that Steenbras hydro pump station, as well as the turbines themselves that have been helping City of Cape Town and Western Cape. That's if they are under the City of Cape Town itself, the providers of electricity. So you'd find that in the Western Cape, Cape Town, for example, is on stage 4, while nationally we are currently on stage 6. That's due in part, large parts, to that hydro pump power station and those turbines. And there are also other mitigating factors. For example, Sally, if you drive around Cape Town, I've only seen one set of traffic lights that has been impacted by load shedding. That's due to the UPS batteries that are in every traffic light, we do understand. And if those batteries do dwindle down and run out of power, there are additional staff that are put in there to man that traffic. That's come, of course, at a cost. We do understand the dent to the finances of the City of Cape Town so far is at around 100 million rand plus.